What's up everyone and welcome back to my channel. So today's video is going to be my first ever if you like this book then you'll like this book type of video. I've never done this before and I'm really sorry if it's kind of loud in my house. I have the dishwasher going and the windows open because I just did like a big deep clean, and so I'm sorry if you can hear that too much in the background, but hopefully you can hear me well enough and this video goes really well. So I've never done this video before. I've seen so many other people do it and I've always been like so intimidated by it because I feel like I haven't read enough in order to do this video. I feel like I wouldn't be as successful, but then I realized that recently, or I guess I just realized that if I sit down and actually write down the books, then I actually do feel like I have some where they were pretty similar. I actually have 8 books on this list. I almost was, or 8 scenarios. I almost had 9, but I didn't get to finish one of the books yet. So maybe I can put that in another one, like 6 months in the future or a year in the future, whenever I'm cool enough to make this video again. But let's go ahead and get started. First off, I'm gonna start out with, if you liked Gone Girl, then you're probably gonna like Dear Wife by Kimberly Bell. So I actually read Dear Wife by Kimberly Bell a month ago, I think. I did only end up giving it, I think, 3 stars. It was only okay, but it reminded me a lot of Gone Girl. So maybe even if you haven't read Gone Girl yet, you do want to try out Dear Wife, because it was like a not as great version of Gone Girl in my opinion, but it has the same type of storyline where you are reading about like the husband and then the wife, and the wife has gone missing, and then you're reading about this character who has like run away or is trying to get away from her abusive husband. That's what's happening in Dear Wife. And so we know that we're reading from like Jeffrey's perspective, I believe that was his name, in Dear Wife, and his wife has disappeared, and then we're reading about this girl named Beth who changed her name and is running from an abusive relationship. And so you don't really know how like everything ties together, but that's part of the storyline then. And I feel like Gone Girl is the same way, where like the husband, his wife is missing and he's trying to figure out like, where did she go? What happened? Did he murder her? All that kind of stuff. So it kind of had the same vibes. And so if you really like Gone Girl, you might also really like Dear Wife. Next up, if you read and liked Dark Matter, then you will probably like The Dream Daughter by Diane Chamberlain. And these are both 5-star books for me. Like, I absolutely love Dark Matter and I absolutely love The Dream Daughter. And the reason that they're similar is they have both like alternate timelines or a type of sci-fi-ish kind of theme. So in Dark Matter, we're reading about this guy who wakes up and is like kidnapped from himself. Like, is so weird. It's like yourself is kidnapping yourself, but in a whole different dimension. And there's so much more to the storyline, but I don't want to give it away because it's such a thrilling story. But I remember at the end of that book, I was like, I don't even know what's happening. Like, was that the end? Like, what was the end? Like, what was it actually? Then in The Dream Daughter, we have a more emotional story, and it's a little bit historical fiction. So I believe it's in the 1960s, and this girl is pregnant, and the heart surgery that she needs to save her baby isn't available in 1960, but she was able to time travel. I know it sounds weird, but it's really not. She is able to time travel to 2001, but there's like so many different things that keep happening and so many different scenarios, and you know, like what happens when you time travel and play with time and stuff like that. And I really just like it a lot. And so I feel like if you like that sci-fi, you know, jumping time zone type of thing in Dark Matter, then you're going to like it in The Dream Daughter. Just pre-prepared, because The Dream Daughter is way more emotional, so you're probably gonna cry. Okay, next up, if you read Behind Closed Doors by B.A. Paris, you are probably, I'm 100% sure you're gonna like The Last Mrs Parish by Liv Constantine. I just read The Last Mrs Parish, and by the way, these are also 2 5-star books for me, and I loved The Last Mrs Parish so much, and I didn't think that I was going to, because I just haven't found a book like that in a while. I actually started getting into thrillers a couple years ago when I read Behind Closed Doors by B.A. Paris, and I just loved this. I read it all in one sitting and it was absolutely amazing and thrilling. And it's about this couple that like seems perfect on the outside, but then you find out all of their deep dark secrets and just the crazy stuff that they deal with. It's like, I can't give any more spoilers because like you just have to read it, and yeah, you really have to read it. Then The Last Mrs Parish is kind of like that as well. It's a domestic thriller, but we're reading about this girl Amber who sees this lady Daphne's life, and according to Amber, like Daphne has everything, like absolutely all the money, the great husband, the nice kids, or bratty kids but spoiled kids or whatever, and Amber's like, I'm going to take over Daphne's life. So she starts kind of like changing into Daphne, I guess, like, you know, changing her hair to be like Daphne's and all that kind of stuff. Well, anyway, there's a part 2 to that story, and mind blown. It's such a good domestic thriller. You definitely have to read it if you love Behind Closed Doors, because it has that same type of like domestic thriller feel, if you know what I mean. Highly recommend either and all of those books. Okay, next up is going to be, if you've read maybe In Another Life by Taylor Jenkins Reid, then you should read In 5 Years by Rebecca Searle. Now, maybe In Another Life is a 5-star read for me. In 5 Years was a 4-star, I believe, but they kind of have a similar contemporary romance with a little bit of alternate reality in it. If you can't tell, I love alternate reality books. So maybe In Another Life is about this girl who, by one like decision that she makes, her life splits into 2, and you get to read about both of her different lives in the book. So like you'll get to see like this version of her life if she would have chose these things, and then you get to see this version of her life if she would have chose these things. And that is really cool to me, because it kind of delivers this message of like, sure, she had good and bad things happen on both paths, but like she didn't know that the other path was even happening, if you know what I mean. So it's like, you know, your whole life you could spend being like, oh, well, what would have happened if I would have done this? But honestly, your life could have been good and bad in that situation too. Like there's no, you know, perfect life. And I really like that book because of it. In 5 Years is kind of similar to that, where it's about this girl who, her life is going really well, and then she wakes up in this like dream type of thing 5 years in the future, and I believe it's like 2025, and she realizes that she's with a different guy, like she's engaged to a different guy, she's in a different apartment, she has a different job, and then she like wakes back up in 2020, which is the present time. And then you read about like what's going on over the next 5 years, and you know, it kind of freaks her out because she's like, okay, am I actually happy right now? Like, why did I have a different fiance? Like, why did I have a different job? And like that type of perspective like really messes with her head, and you just kind of like see how that goes on. So I like both of those books a lot because it gives you that perspective of life, I guess, technically. And so I feel like you get like a really good message out of both of them, but then they're also pretty, you know, nice contemporary lighthearted romances. So it's not like, you know, in your face. It's, you know, kind of funny, kind of like, you know, a good book to read during this time right now. And so I really recommend both of those. If you've read Darling Rose Gold, then I think that you should read Saving Megan, or vice versa if you read Saving Megan, and you know, all of these are vice versas. So Darling Rose Gold is one of the first books or any type of media thing that I've read about that Munchausen by proxy syndrome. And so I have realized that I am like infatuated with that. I love, not that I love it, I always don't know how to say this correctly, but like I enjoy reading about that because I did not realize that people actually suffered from that, and it blows my mind. And so I read Darling Rose Gold, which is very similar to The Act on Hulu. So let's go ahead and throw that in here. If you've read either of these books or watched The Act, then you should read any of these books and watch The Act. Darling Rose Gold is about this daughter who, her mother had poisoned her whole life, and the mother went to jail for it. And so this part of the story that we're reading is the mother gets out of jail, and Darling Rose Gold like actually takes her back into her house. And so there's a bunch of different twists that happen because of that, you know, whether she can trust her mom or not, whether or not she's gonna take revenge on her. Whereas Saving Megan is also about this mother-daughter relationship, but there's also a father included in this one, and this daughter had like been, you know, a really sporty like soccer player for most of her life, and then just a couple years ago, she's like in her teenage years, she starts getting really sick, and the doctors don't know anything. And we read about the mother's background and how like her mother had like that Munchausen syndrome, and how like she taught her kids to fake it in order to like get money out of the system or pills out of the system or whatever. So we really think that this mother is making the daughter sick, or that the daughter isn't really sick and the mother just like thinks that she's sick. But anyway, there's a bunch of different scenarios that go in there. However, I gave Darling Rose Gold 5 stars, and Saving Megan I gave 4 stars. Saving Megan was going to be a 5-star read for me, but I was like, the whole book, like literally all the way until like the last 30 pages, 5 stars for me. So thrilling. I was enthralled. I loved it. But then the ending part was very disappointing in my opinion, and that might just be a personal opinion. You guys might actually really enjoy it, but the ending part just did not go the way that I thought it was going to go, and it got very messy and rushed and cheesy in my opinion. But maybe you guys will honestly really like it too. It's still a 4-star for me because I feel like the whole rest of the book I really enjoyed, but I think you guys should check both of those out, and the TV show if you haven't seen it yet. Okay, if you've read After I Do by Taylor Jenkins Reid, then you should read the Bromance Book Club by Lyssa Kay Adams. The reason I say that these are like pretty similar is because they're both like about a married couple, and I find that it's really hard to find romances about married couples. And what I really like about it is it's not a perfect married couple, it's married couples that are going through very tough times. So After I Do follows this married couple who is having a very rough time. So instead of getting divorced, they decide to be separated for a year, and you get to read about how their separation goes. So they're actually not allowed to like see each other, talk to each other for a whole entire year. And I really liked the storyline. There were very many times where I think I was listening to it in the car, and there were very many times I was like crying my eyes out. 5 stars for me. The Bromance Book Club was also a 5-star read for me as well, and this is about a married couple who realizes, I guess, that they've had a lot of communication issues. The wife has been faking the big O for a really long time, but that's not like the main part of the story. It kind of like, that's like the setup of it, but then you find out that like because she's been faking it, they've been lacking communication, and the husband is like a major baseball player, so like he's always away, and so they want, well, the wife wants to get a divorce and the husband wants to fix the marriage, and he does that with his Bromance Book Club. They read a bunch of like old historical fiction romances in order to figure out how to get his marriage back together. It's so funny, it's so good. It's also a little emotional as well, and loved it, loved them both, and I think that if you've liked either of them, you would really appreciate the other one as well. Next up is if you liked Birthday Girl by Penelope Douglas, you would like On the Island by Tracy Garvis Graves. These are both taboo, forbidden romances. Birthday Girl is about a girl who is 19, I think she's 19, and her boyfriend's father is 38, and that's the person that she is like having a fling with. What I really like about this book is, number one, it is very hot and steamy, but all in the correct ways. But then also, it's not just about a fling, it's more about a relationship and an actual romance. And I feel like it has some of the most relatable characters in a romance, in my opinion. Like, I was really shipping the relationship in this book, so I really like that one. Birthday Girl was a 5-star read, let me say. And then On the Island, I believe I gave 5 stars or 4.5, I can't remember, but On the Island is also more of a relationship built taboo romance, and it's not just a fling, but this is about a tutor who I think is like 27 or 28, and her student who is only 16 at the time, I think. They are in a plane going on vacation, I think, with the family, but they're like in a separate plane, and the plane crashes on this island, and they're on this island for a really long time, like a couple years. So none of the romance or anything weird happens when the boy is like underage. It only happens after he turns 18, so in case you were worried about that. But it really kind of opens your eyes to like, if you were just on an island with somebody, like you probably would fall in love with them just because you both are surviving together. I don't know, it was a very beautiful story, and I really liked it. I enjoyed both of them actually, because I like that like taboo forbidden romance, because love doesn't really have an age in my opinion, so I like that books kind of like portray that. But I think you guys should check them out if you like those two. Okay, last but not least, but if you liked The Cabin at the End of the World, I think that you would also like Bird Box, or vice versa. Both of these also were 5-star reads for me. The Cabin at the End of the World is a little bit weirder than Bird Box, I think. So it's about this cabin, but there are 2 dads, with their daughter, and this like weird like cultish people group thing comes up to their cabin and is trying to get in, and is like, you know, the world is ending and all this kind of like weird apocalyptic stuff, and a lot of stuff goes down. And what I really like about this is it has an ambiguous ending, so you really don't know what happened. Is the world ending or is it not ending? Really love that about it. And then Bird Box is an apocalyptic book about how there's like, I don't know, this thing, we don't really know what it is, that comes into the world, and if people see it, then they start going crazy and like committing suicide. You might have seen the movie on Netflix, but it's really crazy to think like how to survive with, you know, not being able to see anything. And when I was like listening to this book, I was literally so much anxiety, but it also has kind of an open-ended, ambiguous ending. So yeah, if you like those types of like apocalyptic, end of the world, ambiguous ending books, then you will probably like both of those. Okay, you guys, that is it. Those are all of my, like, if you like this book, you'll like this book type of recommendations. I hope that you guys really enjoyed this. Definitely let me know down in a comment if you think that I did a good job with this video, if you think that like the books that I put together actually fit together. I would love to know that, because I really want to make a video like this in the future, but I don't want to keep making them if you're like, yeah, no, those books are not similar at all. So let me know down in the comments. Give this video a big thumbs up if you liked it, and I will see you guys on Saturday with another video. Bye everyone.